A retired postal worker paid $240 for a strip of land in 1970, and for 54 years, nobody cared. Then a $31 million development project came to a complete stop because of a single folded piece of paper his grandson found in the bottom of an old coat pocket, and the developer's lawyer had no answer for it. Preston Holt did not panic. That was the thing about him. 14 years as a real estate attorney, $200 ties, a perfect record on title searches. He did not panic. He was panicking now. The call came on a Tuesday. His paralegal's voice was flat and careful, which meant the news was bad. The Maple Crest Commerce Corridor, 42 acres, $31 million in committed financing, 4 years of permits and planning, had been frozen by the county recorder's office. Not delayed, not paused, frozen. A quiet title action had been filed the previous Friday by a man named Earl Dunmore, age 79, a retired postal worker from Shelby County. The filing referenced a document from 1971 that Preston's entire team had somehow missed. Preston pulled up the scanned record. He read it twice. He said, "Find this man. Today. Rewind 54 years. June 14, 1970. The Shelby County tax auction ran out of a canvas tent in the parking lot of First Meridian Savings on Route 9. 4 folding tables, yellow index cards with lot numbers written in permanent marker. A coffee pot nobody touched after the first cup because it tasted like the pot was older than the building. 11 people attended. Most were locals. 2 were developers. 1 was Earl Dunmore. Earl was 25. He wore his postal uniform because he'd come straight from his route. He had a hand-drawn map folded in his shirt pocket. His father had made that map in 1962 on the back of a grocery receipt. Pencil lines, compass marks, a single notation in the corner that Earl had read so many times he could have written it in the dark. He had $380 in the bank. He had driven 19 miles to be here. Lot 47 came up at 10:14 in the morning. The auctioneer read the description with the energy of a man who wanted to be somewhere else. 11 acres of clay and scrub, landlocked on 3 sides. No road access, no utility hookup, no drainage, no survey flags. It was the kind of lot that got listed last because nobody wanted it first. A man named Clyde Ferris bid $200. Clyde was 41. He owned 3 commercial properties in Shelby County and a lake house in Mississippi, and wore the expression of someone who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. He bid $200 and turned to the man beside him and said something. The man beside him laughed. Earl bid $240. The tent went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then Clyde Ferris laughed. Not a small laugh, a full, out loud, in front of 10 witnesses laugh. He looked at Earl, the postal uniform, the folded map, the young man who had clearly driven out here for this, and he laughed. Earl did not look up. The auctioneer said, $240. Do I have $260? Nobody spoke. Sold. Name, Earl Dunmore. He wrote a check at the folding table. The check cleared on Thursday. The receipt was a small slip of carbon copy paper with the lot number, the amount, and Earl's name written in blue ink. He read it once, folded it twice along clean lines, and put it in the inside pocket of his winter coat. He drove home on Route 9. He did not stop at Lot 47. He did not need to. He had already walked every inch of that land twice in the past 6 months, once in October and once in February, in boots with a compass and a 100-foot surveyor's tape. He knew where the eastern boundary ran. He knew it ran 12 feet further east than Clyde Ferris thought, and he knew what that 12 feet connected to. Loretta was at the kitchen table when he walked in. She had flour on her hands and a bowl in front of her, and did not ask where he had been because she already knew. He put his coat on the hook by the door. He sat down. He said, "I bought Lot 47. She looked at him, not worried, not confused, just reading his face the way she had for 3 years of marriage, the way she could tell the difference between a decision he had made and a decision he was still making. This was not a decision he was still making. She said, "How much?" He said, $240. She nodded and went back to her bowl. Earl pulled out his father's map and laid it flat on the table. He uncapped a pen and marked a small X on the eastern edge of Lot 47. He looked at the X for a long time. Then he drew a thin line running north from it, 3/4 of a mile, through a stretch of land that 6 different people currently believed they owned free and clear. The line stopped at the northern boundary. He capped the pen. He did not say what the line meant. He did not need to. The map said it. The receipt in his coat pocket confirmed it. And the document he had found 6 weeks earlier in a county file that had not been opened since 1961 made it permanent. Nobody at that auction knew what he had just bought. Nobody except Earl, and Earl was not going to explain it to anyone. Not yet. Before this story gets where it's going, do yourself a favor and subscribe, because the document Earl found in that county file is about to rewrite everything, and you will not want to miss the moment it clicks. November 1971, Shelby County Public Library, third table from the window. Earl set down a spiral-bound county document and opened it to page 31. The document was the 1958 Shelby County Infrastructure Expansion Report. It weighed about as much as a phone book and smelled like a basement. The checkout card in the back showed 3 names. The last one was dated 1963. Before that, 1959. The librarian had looked at Earl when he asked for it, the way people look when they're not sure if you're serious. He was serious. Page 31 had a footnote. Footnote 7. It was 11 lines long and set in a smaller font than the rest of the page. The kind of thing a person reads once and skips. Earl read it 4 times. It said that all utility access corridors established under Resolution 44C would remain legally active until formally dissolved by a vote of the Board of County Commissioners. It said no formal dissolution was on record as of the printing date. Earl wrote the citation in his notebook. The notebook was brown vinyl, bought at the 5 and Dime for 60 cents. He wrote the resolution number, the date, and 3 words underneath, still in force. He drove to the county recorder's office that afternoon and asked for Resolution 44C from the 1958 general file. The clerk, a woman named Mrs. Fay Odom, who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain, pulled it without asking why. Earl photographed it with a borrowed camera. He paid $4.75 to have the film developed. He kept 2 prints in the manila folder in his bottom drawer, one in the glove box of his truck, and one folded inside the lining of his winter coat, behind the auction receipt. That coat stayed on the hook by the front door for the next 31 years. Loretta found him at the kitchen table that same week, the hand-drawn map spread out under the overhead light, the kettle going on the stove, 3 different colors of ink on the map now. She poured 2 cups without being asked. She looked at the map. She looked at the thin line Earl had drawn north from Lot 47. She said, "Is that the only way in?" Earl said, "For 200 acres? Yes." She sat down. She wrapped both hands around her cup. She did not ask anything else. The kettle clicked off. Over the following months, Earl drove past the northern parcels twice a week, not to be seen, just to watch. He logged it in the notebook. Dates, observations, a few words per entry. Survey flags on the northeast corner. Fresh tire tracks on the unpaved county road running parallel to the flood buffer. An LLC filing in the Shelby County Register for a company called Ferris Northern Holdings, dated March 1972, listing 11 parcels totaling 284 acres. Clyde was assembling. Earl kept watching. He pulled the 1963 Drainage District expansion maps from the county archive. The flood buffer had grown. The 2 secondary access roads that used to run along the eastern and western edges of the northern parcels had both been reclassified as protected drainage corridors in 1969. No construction, no grading, no access. Earl spread the drainage map beside his father's original drawing. He traced the boundary of the flood buffer with his finger. It ran north. It ran east. It ran west. It stopped exactly 12 feet short of his property line. Every other entry point to Clyde's 284 acres was legally blocked. Every single one. Earl sat back. He picked up his coffee cup. He looked at the map for a long time. The thin pencil line his father had drawn in 1962. The typed resolution he'd found in the library. The drainage corridor that had quietly sealed every other option shut while nobody was paying attention. His father had seen something in 1962 that nobody else thought to look for. Earl had confirmed it in 1971. He closed the notebook. He was 30 years old. He had paid $240 for the only door into 284 acres of land that a developer had spent years and serious money assembling. And that developer had no idea the door existed, let alone who owned it. The trap was not set in anger. It was not set in greed. Earl Dunmore said it the same way his father had taught him to do anything worth doing. Quietly, completely, and without a single wasted word. $340,000. The agent said it out loud on Earl's front porch, like the number alone would be enough. Her name was Sandra Briggs. She was maybe 30, polished blazer, new car in the driveway, a folder tucked under one arm like she was used to people opening the door wide when they saw her coming. She said she represented a regional land acquisition group and that they had identified Earl's parcel as a key infrastructure component for a planned development in northern Shelby County. She said fair market value had been assessed. She said the offer was $340,000, cash, clean close, 60 days. Earl held the screen door with one hand. He said, "No, thank you." She recalibrated. She said they could go to $375,000. She said it was a strong number for 11 acres of undeveloped land with no utilities. Earl said, "I know what it is." She left her card on the porch railing. A rain came through 2 days later and took it. In between, Earl mowed the strip twice a year, spring and fall, paid the annual tax bill every April, $47, then $52, then $61 as the years moved and the county adjusted its rolls. He kept the corner markers clear. He kept the eastern boundary line visible. He did not put up a fence. He did not post signs. He just maintained what was his, the same way his father had maintained the small things that turned out to matter. The notebook filled up slowly. Dates, names, offer amounts. He kept the entries short. The second offer came by phone. A man from the Shelby County Planning Office, formal and careful, said the county was exploring corridor acquisition options for a regional commerce initiative, and that Earl's parcel had been flagged as a potential acquisition target under eminent domain review. The offer was $510,000. He said the county preferred willing seller transactions, but that other tools were available. Earl let a beat pass. He said, "You'll want to pull Resolution 44C before you use those tools." Silence on the line. Earl thanked him and hung up. He did not write it in the notebook. Some conversations weren't worth the ink. Loretta was at the kitchen table when he came back in. She had heard the call from the next room, but hadn't moved. She said, "County this time?" He said, "They'll figure it out." She put the kettle on. That was as much as either of them ever needed to say about it. Their daughter Marie was 12 the summer the county call came. She came in from the yard one afternoon while Earl was looking at the map and asked what the thin line meant. He told her it was an access corridor, a path on paper that let people move from one place to another. She asked who used it. He said nobody yet. She said that seemed like a waste. He looked at her. He said, "Not if you're the one who owns it." She went back outside. She didn't ask about it again for 22 years. In a Memphis office building, Richard Cale, the developer who had acquired most of Clyde Ferris's holdings after the 2003 bankruptcy, was on the phone with his attorney. 4 years of permits, $31 million in committed financing, a signed construction timeline, and the title review his team had run 3 times had come back clean on everything except one parcel, one strip, 11 acres of clay land owned by a retired postal worker who wouldn't return calls. His attorney said, "We may need to consider other approaches." Cale said, "Get someone out there." The third offer arrived on a Thursday morning in October 2019. Earl heard the car first. Expensive engine, slow on the gravel driveway. He was at the kitchen table with his coffee when the knock came. He opened the door to a man in a 3-piece suit holding a leather briefcase. The man introduced himself as a representative of Cale Development Partners and asked if he could come in. Earl stepped back and let him. The man set his briefcase on the table. He accepted coffee. He opened a folder and laid a printed check face up between them. $610,000. He said it was a cash purchase, no contingencies, and that his client wanted to move quickly. Earl looked at the check. He picked up his coffee cup. He said, "No." The man in the suit adjusted his posture. He said his client was prepared to discuss structure, installment payments, a long-term lease arrangement, a consulting fee attached to the sale. Earl said, "I understand what he wants." The man said, "Then help me understand what you want." Earl stood up, which meant the meeting was over. The man left the check on the table. Earl put it in the manila folder, filed it under C. 3 weeks later, on a quiet Monday morning, the phone rang. Earl was at the kitchen table. His coffee was still hot. He looked at the screen. Unfamiliar number. Memphis area code. He looked at it for one full ring. Then he picked up. $690,000, the lawyer said. Final offer. My client will not go higher. Earl did not answer right away. He set his coffee cup down on the table, slowly, the way a man sets something down when he has already decided what he is going to say and is just waiting for the right moment to say it. He said, "Have your client call my daughter." Then he hung up. Marie Dunmore drove down from Nashville that Saturday. She was 41 years old. She had spent the last 12 years doing property law, and she had the kind of calm in a courtroom that made opposing counsel nervous before she said a word. She sat at the kitchen table across from her father. Between them, the original 1970 auction receipt, the manila folder, the brown vinyl notebook, worn soft at the corners, the copy of Resolution 44C, 54 consecutive annual tax receipts, everyone showing the quarter as a separately assessed feature of Lot 47, everyone paid on time, not one missing, and the folded document from the coat pocket. Marie picked it up carefully. It was a notarized letter from the Shelby County Engineer's Office, dated November 14, 1971. It confirmed that the Resolution 44C corridor access attached to Lot 47's eastern strip remained legally active and had not been vacated by the county. Signed, stamped, witnessed. Earl had asked for it in writing 51 years ago. He had paid 65 cents in notary fees. Marie set it down. She said, "Dad, they have nothing." Earl said, "I know." She looked at the tax receipts. She counted them without being asked. Then she opened her laptop and pulled up the Kale Development permit file, spread it beside the deed, and sat in silence for 4 minutes. She said, "Their entire northern access runs through your strip. Every permit they filed assumes this corridor is uncontested." Earl nodded. She said, "They're going to try abandonment." Earl said, "Let them." The abandonment filing arrived 10 days later. Richard Kale's legal team claimed the corridor had been constructively abandoned. Never improved, never used for its designated purpose. Legally dormant for over 5 decades. Preston Holt signed the filing. It was thorough. It was well written. It cited 4 precedents. Marie read it at the kitchen table in under 15 minutes. Then she made a phone call. She told Preston Holt's paralegal that she would see them at the county administrative hearing and that they should bring everything they had because she was only going to need 3 documents. The hearing was held on a Wednesday morning in October 2022. Preston arrived with a team of 4. Richard Kale sat in the back row. There were 9 people in the room who had no official reason to be there. Locals mostly, some of them old enough to remember the auction tent on Route 9, the canvas walls, the coffee nobody finished. Marie laid 3 documents on the table. The 1970 auction receipt showing the corridor rights as part of the purchase. The 54 years of tax records showing the county itself had assessed and collected tax on the corridor every single year without interruption. The 1971 notarized letter from the county engineer's own office, confirming the corridor was active. She said, "The county taxed this parcel for 54 consecutive years. You cannot claim abandonment on land you were billing." 1 sentence. The hearing officer looked at Preston Holt. Preston looked at the 3 documents. He reached for his phone. The ruling took less than a minute. What happened in the hallway took longer. Preston found Marie outside the hearing room. He said his client understood the legal position and wanted to discuss a resolution. He said there was still a number that worked for everyone. Marie said, "There is no number. My father isn't selling." Preston said, "Then what does he want?" She told him. A permanent recorded easement, the Dunmore name on the document in perpetuity, transferable to his heirs. A monthly corridor use fee of $4,200, indexed to inflation, paid for as long as the Maple Crest development operated. A minimum guaranteed term of 30 years. Preston did the math in the hallway. 30 years. $4,200 a month. $1.5 million. Minimum, no ceiling. He called Cale. Cale said nothing for 8 seconds. Then he said, "Sign it." Marie called Earl from the parking lot. He picked up on the second ring. She said, "They took every term." Earl said, "Good. Thank your mother." Marie went quiet for a moment. She said, "She's not here, Dad." He said, "I know. She still gets the credit." The signing was held at the Shelby County Clerk's office on a Friday afternoon. Earl wore the same coat he had worn to the 1970 auction. Not the original, but one exactly like it. Bought at the same store on Route 9, 30 years after the first one wore out. In the inside pocket, the folded 1971 letter. He signed his name once, clearly, at the bottom of the easement agreement. He walked to his truck. He opened the brown vinyl notebook to the last page. He wrote, October 28th, 2022. Recorded, $4,200 per month. Loretta trusted the whole thing. He closed the notebook. He put it on the seat beside him. In the local paper that weekend, a brief item ran on page 4 about the Maple Crest Commerce Corridor reaching a resolution with a private landowner over access rights. Richard Cale offered no comment. Preston Holt did not return calls. In the back room of a diner on Route 9, 2 men who had been at the 1970 auction read the item without saying anything to each other. There was nothing to say. Back at the house, Marie was at the kitchen table with the permit file and the deed in the empty coffee cups. She heard the truck pull in. She heard the front door. She heard her father hang his coat on the hook by the door. The same hook, the same spot. She put the kettle on. Earl sat down. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. Some men spend a lifetime chasing what they want. Earl Dunmore spent 52 years making sure what he wanted had no choice but to come to him. Here's the question I want you to sit with before you go. If you were in Earl's chair, $690,000 cash on the table, one signature done, would you have taken it? Or would you have held for the monthly deal that pays your family for the next 30 years? Drop your answer below. Earl already knows what he would say.